maybe for some of you a more real question, and some of you a more theoretical question. But let's say that you were given 1 week to pack whatever you can carry with you, and you're going to go out on a journey to someplace new. You can only take that which you can carry. You must leave everything else behind. So the first question is, what is it that you take? Just think about it. And even more important, I think, is how do you decide what to take? Now, today, with modern technology, if you had asked me this question 20 years ago, I would have said I would have grabbed my photo albums and important documents. But I don't have it on me, obviously, but little phone thing, and I don't know, what can I fit in there? 10,000 pictures? And documents, what?
Depends on how many you put online.
Okay, or how many I put online, exactly. But you know, I can fit, so I don't need to take that photo album necessarily. Do you have Wi-Fi? Although if you ask people now, and even refugees today, you know what they make sure to pack? Is their charger. For real. Solar charger if you have one, but any charger would be good enough because you can eventually access it, right? But think about it. Throughout the history of civilizations, people and entire populations have moved. Whether they were forced to move, war caused them to have to move, violence, famine, or perhaps just the lure of a better place, a better life somewhere else, people have always moved from one place to another. And every time that a person or a community moves, choices are made about what to bring. When we see pictures of refugees from around the world, they often have bags over their shoulders, suitcases dragging through the dirt, perched on a car or even on a donkey or something else. But those bags, that's more or less all they have. I remember in the late 80s, my family adopted a family who had come from the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, and we as a privileged family tried to understand how it was that they didn't have anything that wasn't in those bags. So what was it they brought in those bags? Each one bag a person. Clothes, some jewelry if they could sneak it out, a stuffed animal, maybe a few pictures because this was before cell phones. And then our family provided the rest to start a new life. Now let's take a look at the Israelites when they were leaving Egypt. Last week we read how the Israelites had done Moses' bidding, borrowed from the Egyptians objects of silver and gold and clothing, and the Lord disposed the Egyptians favorably toward the people and let them have their requests. Thus they stripped the Egyptians. Moreover, a mixed multitude went up with them, and very much livestock, flocks and herds. So the Israelites took clothing, they took jewels, they took people, and they took livestock, which is food, whatnot. But all the while, as the Israelites made their last-minute decisions about what to take, one man was scrambling in the opposite direction. Moses is not, as we might expect, out leading the charge. Pack, come on, get ready, pack, 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 pack. Instead, Moses is busy trying to fulfill an oath made hundreds of years earlier. When Joseph was about to die in Egypt, he knew that he would insult the Egyptians if he asked to be buried outside of Egypt. So he said to his siblings and his offspring, I am about to die. God will surely take notice of you and bring you up from this land to the land that he promised an oath to Abraham, Isaac, and to Jacob. So Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, when God has taken notice of you, you shall carry up my bones, atzamot, from here. The Torah tells us that upon his death, Joseph was embalmed, placed in a coffin in Egypt. But what became of that coffin? The Egyptians placed Joseph's coffin in the holy waters of the Nile, a great honor in Egyptian society. And there the metal coffin sunk to the bottom of the Nile until Moses realized the oath his ancestors had taken and that he had to fulfill before they ran out of Egypt. The Torah tells us, and Moses took with him the bones of Joseph, who exacted an oath from the children of Israel, saying, God will be sure to take notice of you, that you should carry up my bones from here with you. Okay, great. But why here? Why make mention of the bones here and now? Why is Moses, of all people, the one who's going? Why didn't he appoint one of his deputies, one of his assistants, go get the bones of Joseph? And how the heck did he know 400 years later where the bones were? How did he know? Probably one of the more famous rabbinic midrashim tell us. The midrash in the Talmud says, where did Moses, our teacher, know where Joseph was buried? The sages say, Serach bat Asher. Serach, the daughter of Asher, remained from that generation that came down with Jacob. As background, let me remind you that Serach bat Asher, in case you missed her in the lineage, because it's easy to miss a girl in the Bible. Serach bat Asher is actually one of the very few women who's given her own identity, as opposed to simply the wife of so-and-so. When this happens, the Torah, the sages say, there must be something important about this one because she got a name. So she's mentioned in Genesis when they came down, and she's mentioned again in Numbers. She's the only one, the only person who has the critical piece of information, sacred, essential memory that Moses must access in order for the Israelites to fully leave Egypt. And so the Israelites were busy packing, deciding what to take. Moses realized that he had to take the link to the past. He had to find Serach bat Asher, who could tell him where the bones of Joseph were. The Midrash goes on, and this is the great part. Moses went to her and said, do you know anything about where Joseph is buried? And she replied, the Egyptians made him a metal casket and sent it to the Nile. Moses went to the bank of the Nile and said, Joseph, Joseph, the time has arrived about which the Holy One swore to redeem us. Thus it's time for the Jewish people to fulfill their oath to you and bury you in Israel. If you show yourself, great. If not, I'm freed from this oath. And the metal casket floated to the surface of the Nile. But Rabbi David Kasher teaches us something brilliant here. When we read in the book of Joshua about the Israelites finally crossing over into the land of Israel, we read, quote, the bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought up from Egypt, were buried at Shechem in the piece of ground Jacob had purchased. Now, what's wrong with this line here, my friends? What's missing? Jacob was already buried there in the Machpelah. Wait, let me read it again. The bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought up from Egypt, were buried at Shechem. Who's missing? Who went and looked for those bones? Moses. Moses is not mentioned at all. Zero, zip, zilch. They wrote him out. Excuse me, what? Rabbi David Kasher notices this and says, excuse me. Oh. Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina in the Talmud reflects on this and declares, anyone who performs a matter but doesn't complete it, and then another comes and completes it, the verse, the Torah, will ascribe the credit to the one who completed it as if they did the entire act themselves. When Moses met his own death, the children of Israel took the bones and continued the journey. Why is this okay? And why is this important to us? Because each of us carry memory. Each of us, as we go on our journeys, even if we don't physically move, we move from one stage of life to the next. We carry with us the memory of our people. Why do we say that each one of us stood at Mount Sinai at the revelation, and not that Moses gave it to us? Why? Because each of us is responsible for transmitting to the next generation. We pack it with us, we carry it, we hand it on, and then it's theirs. Likewise, today, we are part of a larger Jewish family, and we have to carry those memories. The memories that we carry today are the memories of those who 1 week ago were shot down for being Jews in the state of Israel. A terrorist opened fire, not at a synagogue specifically, but because, as I was explaining to Mark Boyack, our security guard, that there's a synagogue on every corner. If you happen to be walking by, then you're in front of a synagogue. These people happen to be in front of a synagogue. They weren't going to synagogue necessarily. But he shot them for being Jews. And so, before we rise to recite the prayer for the USA and then for Israel, I think it's important for us to recall and carry, if only for one moment, the memories of Raphael ben Eliyahu, 56 years old, who had been returning from a family Shabbat dinner. When he heard people calling for help, he ran to assist, not realizing that a Palestinian terrorist was still lurking, and he was shot. Hours later, his grandson was born in California. Shaul Chai, 68 years old, was visiting the community of Neve Yaakov, the neighborhood, for Shabbat, and he was on his way to an evening Torah study class. He was the gabbai of his synagogue. People reflected that he was the most modest and loving person. Asher Natan Morelli, the youngest victim at 14 years old, was on his way to go meet his rabbi and some friends. He was a student in Yeshiva Avni Kodesh, founded by Rabbi Chaim and Rabbanit Yamina Mizrahi, a yeshiva for kids who don't fit the typical system and mixes agriculture and Torah study. His teacher cried on his grave, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Eli Mizrahi and Natalie Mizrahi, been married 2 years. She finished her shift at the cafeteria of Hadassah Hospital and went to check on her elderly mother. They were seated around their table having Shabbat dinner when they heard gunshots outside. Nathan and Ellie ran outside. Natalie was giving CPR to somebody else and was shot. Ellie ran up to call the police and help her and was shot. And Ilya Solsansky, of 25 years old, was a beloved DJ on his way after family dinner to go spin records at a club. And Irina Korolova was 59 years old. She arrived in Israel 6 years ago and worked in a nursing home. She happened to be walking by. We carry with us the memories. We carry with their stories, not just their names, but who they were. And we remember them. And we tell their stories because it's part of our story, the story of the Jewish people. The final thing, the words for bones in Hebrew that were carried up, or atzamot, and it's spelled the same way as etzemot, which is the essence. So the commentators question, did Bnei Yisrael actually carry up the bones of Joseph? Or did they carry up the essence, what he stood for, the lessons he taught? As we carry, perhaps we don't carry the bones, but we can carry the essence, the soul, the memory, and the stories that all of those people, those in our lives, those we knew and those we didn't, have taught us. And we could commit ourselves to continuing to make the world a better place in their name, to continuing to learn Torah in their name, and to continuing to further our support and our love for our fellow Jews everywhere. Shabbat Shalom.